name is Laura, and I'm basically the designer for Hemp Love.
I'm Lorraine. I co-founded the company with Laura.
My role in the business is basically everything that has to do with the designing of the clothing division. I work hand in hand with our CMT, where we have our garments produced, and then I also work hand in hand with Lorraine, where we will sit and discuss and go through the ideas that I have for the designs for our next season and our next range.
My role in the company is basically managing the company from a financial point of view. I also focus on making the products, so our skincare range and stuff, because that's what I do as a profession. And I've also introduced the natural dyes into the company.
Hi, my name is Tukiya Melissa, and I am the founder of Tukiya's Closet. So I initially started my journey 8 years ago when I first moved to Cape Town. My very first job was at a vintage shop. I worked for Wendy's on Lower Main and Observatory. And then it was like 3 or 4 years later, when I was in my final year of varsity, I kind of started getting back into it again. And this was like a good 2-3 year break. But I had always been a consumer, so I'm always buying vintage. I'm always looking at clothing. I'm always looking at fabric, and my sister and my partner and my very best friend are all in fashion. Last year I gave birth to my child, and I had finished varsity, and I was working for an agency, and I just wasn't really finding myself. And there was a point of me kind of losing my confidence in myself and things that I knew that I was able to do. When I decided to leave my job, I knew that I had to like make money in one way or another. And I thought, why not start this again?
My name's Kimberly Lardner-Burke. I am the owner of Summer Made in the Cape. I didn't study fashion, but I've always had a love for natural fabrics and sustainability. Growing up, my dad's always brought in like a lot of natural base cloths, and he specializes with linens and hemps and cottons. I kind of was surrounded by that for most of my life. I used to see a lot of designs that were utilizing natural base cloths, but I felt like there was like a gap in the market for taking them on in a different way, maybe like incorporating more color, making it maybe a bit more playful as well.
So my inspiration comes from timeless designs. What are people really looking for? What do people really need? And what is not out there necessarily? And it's always actually quite simple, you know.
Timeless designs is part of our sustainability process as well. It's not just following a trend. So it's always classy to have a nice white collar shirt. Yeah, we also focus on small batch manufacturing. So we don't make a lot of items in all different colors. We try to keep it very simple. We actually focus on like a zero waste principle. So all our offcuts gets made into smaller garments or hair pieces. So we really try to get as much value out of the products as possible.
So I've got quite a bit of a guideline when I'm looking for clothes, and I usually look at A, is it a timeless piece? B, is it in good condition? Is it a good quality piece? Is it well stitched? Is it well put together garment? And C, is this fashionable? Is it something that somebody can have for a long time? I'm a big believer in returning items as well if customers don't feel comfortable with them. I feel like a no return policy in itself is unsustainable in a way, because people end up having items that they no longer want, and often in a state of annoyance end up chucking it or disregarding it in a manner that could have been avoided.
The brand itself actually kind of started itself. I had a pair of dungarees that I wore, which was the brand's core dungaree design with like the tie in the front. And friends of mine would see me wearing it, and they would say like they love it, and they would love one. So it just kind of found its own way. I didn't plan for that to happen, and that's why the dungarees, specifically the classic dungies, have been like a staple item that I've kept.
Okay, so we buy our fabrics in a natural form. unbleached, and there's no bleach or anything on it. What we do is we contact restaurants around South Africa, especially like in Tulbagh and small towns in Cape Town and the Western Cape. We ask them to collect their avo stones and skins and their onion skins. That's one of our favorite dyes at the moment to work with. And then a dye bath is prepared with the avo stones and skins, and then it takes quite a while. It's a long process and time-consuming process, but it's really rewarding. The colors that we have at the moment is we work with avo stones and skins, which gives like a really rich peach pink kind of color. Then we also use turmeric, which is obviously yellow. Our onion skins gives a stone light brown type of color. And then my favorite is a specific strain of fynbos that gives this rich yellow green, like it's a very vibrant color. Our garments are more expensive, but not in the long term if you think about it. And it's almost like an investment that you make, because you're aware of the fact that if you throw our clothes away, it'll decompose and just form part of the soil again.
Sometimes when clothes are moved around, especially with leather, it gets so compressed and it gets creases that almost feel forever creases. But it's also giving tips to my consumer that, hey, if you lay this down and you put a wet cloth on it and you iron it, that crease definitely will come out. And that's something else that helps people almost take care of their clothes. I want to go into teaching people how to take care of the clothes, but I also don't want to be like a mom about it. I've realized that a lot of people don't know how to do that, and that is why clothes end up coming back into these spaces and basically end up being discarded, is because of that, just that small thing. Just being more conscious of the environment, of where you're spending your money, of what you can get for a certain price, of making sure that things don't just go into a dumping ground, of just creating longevity for clothing. I think it also goes into taking care of clothing yourself. But yeah, I think it's important. You're supporting so many other people than what you think you are, apart from the obvious environmental issues.
It is something that inspires me to create, is to be sustainable. If I can make a garment and have it as fully sustainable as possible, where even the buttons are like coconut buttons, and I know that like it's as natural as it can be. Even the packaging, like the labels that you print are like recycled paper, like just tiny elements that you put like investigation into, and maybe they cost like that extra 1 or 2 rand or 3 rand. You feel good knowing that you're doing it.
The most important thing is to look after our planet, because otherwise we won't be here to enjoy whatever we're doing.
I think it's more so also just about showing people that it is possible to have something that can be sustainable, and you can like function and you can see a return and you can like capitalize on it, whereas rather just, you know, not doing it. It is possible to do it, so why not try it?
There's definitely a shift and a lot of companies coming up and business models that are changing, not just from a fashion point of view, but in terms of business in general. And the most important thing for me is to educate people on the cost of a product. So for example, with our clothes, it has a higher cost to make. But if you take the total cost of a product's life cycle, for example, a plastic bag should be more expensive than a paper bag, because the cost to destroy it, it's so much more, but that doesn't get taken into account, or the cost to the environment. And if you start taking that into account in the costing of products, those products will be more expensive or should be more expensive, but it's not, and that's where the problem comes in. To be honest, sustainability is not really a choice. It's like it doesn't make sense that there's another way. Just from a like rational or logical point of view, like if it's not sustainable, it won't last. And why do stuff then and have to redo it or fix it later? Just do it properly kind of from the beginning.